This is Fantasy Football Today on CBSSports.com.
You survived all the bye weeks from week 4. Now week 5, well, hopefully your fantasy rosters are back to full strength. Welcome to an exclusive edition of Fantasy Football Today for CBS Local Sports. I'm Jamie Eisenberg. This is Dave Richard, and we're going to give you some starts and sits for your week 5 slate and hopefully get you to 5-0. Dave?
But what if I've got all Raiders and Dolphins on my team?
Then you are 0-5.
It's probably true.
Yes. All right, let's take a look at some start quarterbacks. I love Phillip Rivers this week. I think as the start of the week for CBSSports.com, he's going to come through like Colin Kaepernick did last week. At least 23 or more fantasy points, but Phillip Rivers has top 5 potential this week against a Jets defense that has allowed multiple touchdowns to every quarterback that they faced, including the great Derek Carr, who may be on Dave's fantasy team, the quarterback for the Raiders. So I think you see Rivers. He's been great the last 3 weeks, and I think he keeps it up. No interceptions over that span, multiple touchdowns in every game. His passing game is clicking, running game is not. This is a Phillip Rivers game.
I'm a Matt McGloin guy myself. We talked about Colin Kaepernick last week as the start of the week. I don't see it this week. I'm a little nervous that the 49ers kind of found their way running the football. In Kansas City's run defense, it's actually weak. I know they look good against the Patriots. They've allowed at least 4.6 yards per carry to every team they face. I think the Niners at home try to control the clock, keep Jamal Charles off the field. Let's lean on Frank Gore and not necessarily leave Colin Kaepernick to do a lot of damage. But if he does end up moving out of the pocket, that's where he's been at his best. I'll say this, he's okay, but I like a lot of other quarterbacks better. That's why he's not in my top 12.
I actually like Kaepernick as a top 10 guy this week. We could disagree on that. You could read more about it on the site. But one guy we love this week is the great Bishop Sankey, running back.
Incomparable Bishop Sankey.
For the Titans, who has apparently went to dancing school and gotten his footwork right, because now Ken Whisenhunt sounds like he's going to give him some more work.
A regular Fred Astaire out there in Nashville. And I think that the matchup is perfect for him. You look at this Browns defense. They haven't been good against the run all year. And oddly enough, here are the Titans who haven't been able to run the ball very well unless it's been Bishop Sankey. And he hasn't had a lot of work. This is the week where they can let him off the chain. He's at home. Nice friendly confines. The offensive line is good. Going to push around that Browns front. And you might see Bishop Sankey lead the Titans to a win. And that's something they haven't had lately. And the fact that Jake Locker's there will force the defense to play back a little bit because Locker's certainly more competent than Charlie Whitehurst, who started for Tennessee last week. We're all in on Bishop Sankey. I like him as a top 12 guy.
Yep, and I would start Bishop Sankey over Alfred Morris, who I never thought we would be saying.
Never thought we'd say it, but Alf plays Seattle this week.
And that's the tough matchup for him. He's got to face a Seahawks defense that has really shut down almost every opposing running back that they faced, not named John Kuhn, who is the only one to score a touchdown against them in week 1, but it's been Eddie Lacy, Ryan Matthews, Monte Ball, 3 of the best running backs that we have in the NFL right now. Alfred Morris is in that same caliber of player, but we know Seahawks are going to do a good job in containing that running game, trying to make Kirk Cousins into a passing guy so that they can turn the ball over and score some defensive touchdowns or at least get their offense the ball back. So it's a tough week for Alfred Morris, not even in my top 36. I don't even think you should use him as a flex this week. It's going to be a tough go for him in this matchup against Seattle.
I don't know if Redskins fans are rooting for Kirk Cousins to throw, but I know Seahawks fans are because of that matchup. There's going to be a lot of passing going on, I think anyway, in that game between the Texans and the Cowboys. And I know one guy that you like is a guy that I've talked about for a while, DeAndre Hopkins, but you've got him as a start this week. Welcome aboard the DeAndre Hopkins train, young man.
Yeah.
Why do you love him so much?
He's been great. You know, in all 4 games so far this year, either 100 yards or a touchdown, and I think that continues against this Dallas secondary. I think you'll see him continue to play well. He is the better of the 2 fantasy receivers in Andre Johnson. Andre Johnson's still getting the targets, but we know he doesn't score touchdowns. He's not producing as a starting fantasy caliber receiver right now, but DeAndre Hopkins is. I think he keeps it up for 1 more week. Should be a top 20 guy once again.
I'm going to go with a veteran to sit this week, and it's someone that we've been leaning on in fantasy football for a long time, but even though he's got a favorable matchup, I'm going to sit Marcus Colston against the Tampa Bay Bucks. We've seen, I said Colston against the Tampa Bay Bucks.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm going with that. That's a bad matchup for Colston. And the reason why I think it's a bad matchup for Colston, as I figure out what the heck I'm trying to say here, is that Drew Brees can look downfield at other targets that he has. Jimmy Graham, now that we know that the Bucs are going to play without safety Deshaun Goldson, I think he's going to have a field day. And we haven't seen Brandon Cooks really step up in a while, and he's due. At home, they need a get-right game in the worst way for this offense. Brees has been efficient, not spectacular. He's got to lean on Cooks for that, not Colston. I know he has googly eyes for Colston sometimes. Threw to him in double coverage last week. Forget about that. Colston's a dud. He might not even get you 10 fantasy points this week, so sit him down.
Now, you told me I'm on the DeAndre Hopkins bandwagon. Well, you're finally on the Heath Miller bandwagon, my friend.
I love Heath Miller.
After the way that he performed last week, Miller comes out, I think, has another good game, but tell us why you should start him against the Jaguars.
Well, you said it. Jaguars. I'm done here. Okay, if you want a little bit more than that, they've allowed 4 touchdowns to tight ends this season. None last week to Antonio Gates, but Gates wasn't targeted as much. You want to know how many targets Heath Miller had last week? he already knows 11, and he caught 10 of them, had 85 yards. Kind of a big game for Heath Miller. It's been a while since he's been that involved in the offense, but I think they're going to stick with what works. And I think Heath Miller is going to continue to be a big target for them. I like him this week as a top 5 tight end.
I would agree, and I would start him over a guy that was probably drafted to be at least a top 10 tight end. Maybe
he was drafted by me as a top 10 tight end.
As a potential top 5 guy in Zach Ertz.
Yeah.
Zach Ertz has just been struggling the last couple of games. I think it's going to be a tough matchup for him again against St. Louis. 36 games now for the Rams. Only 3 tight ends have gotten to double digits in fantasy points, and we've seen Ertz fall off the last 2 weeks. I think this is a LaShawn McCoy game for the Eagles, get their running game going. Not going to have Nick Foles do too much, and I think because of that, Ertz suffers. They're still, using both tight ends with Ertz and Selleck. We saw Selleck get a couple red zone targets last week against the 49ers. That hurts Ertz, no pun intended there. I think you see Zach Ertz, though, start to bounce back as the season moves along, but right now, tough matchup, not playing well. A lot of other tight ends better, like Keith Miller. I would even start, you ready for this?
What?
Garrett Graham of the Houston Texans over Zach Ertz. That's right. Going bold. I think Zach Ertz is a struggle.
That is quite bold. And listen, I've got Ertz on a bunch of my rosters, and I'm disappointed with how he's played. But I might stick with him in a couple of my leagues because I just don't want to make a move to pick up another tight end.
Totally understand.
But that's just me.
Same thing.
You might have other options.
Yep, same people have been doing that with Jason Witt and some other players as well. For more of your fantasy advice, check us out Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern on CBSSports.com, and we'll get your starts and sits and help you win your fantasy leagues, unless, of course, you're playing with the Dolphins or Raiders. Then you're stuck. Stay tuned next time for CBS Local Sports Fantasy Football Today.